Say it now. Say the obvious prediction right now.
The Stars are going to win the Stanley Cup.
Hey guys, welcome back to Starcaster Remarks alongside Chris. My name is Ryan Chambers. We are the only Dallas Stars fan-led podcast. Go and check out sarcasticremarks.com. That's the website. If you like anything you hear today, please consider liking and subscribing on YouTube or wherever you're listening to your podcast. Leave that 5-star review. We love for you guys to do that so we can grow, and it has been absolutely amazing, Chris, what we have been able to do over the course of the last couple months with this podcast. But you know what else has been great? The Stars. The Stars are now in the third round. We're here to talk this evening about the third round between the Edmonton Oilers and the Dallas Stars. We'll get to that here in just a second. But first things first, personal life updates. Chris, how you doing?
I'm great. That's it for me.
He's only doing that to save a little bit of time because I have a major life update. Just for those of you that have that follow me just on my personal Twitter, you saw today that I have a new job. I get to go home and I get to be a band teacher in my hometown. I get to teach couple of my brothers now, being this band teacher, and I also get to teach some other family members, including my niece and also my cousin. So I'm really stoked for the opportunity. It's going to be awesome. But y'all don't really care about all that much, except for this now. It's closer to Dallas. So instead of being 6 hours away, I'm only going to be an hour away from the American Airlines Center starting next season.
And the podcast loses its longest trope. The West Texas internet joke is dead. It is so sad.
I knew that this was coming. So Ryan, you got it. That was gonna be my very next thing. No more Starlink internets after this off season. So I don't know when we're gonna be up there, when we're gonna make the move, but I'm going to have better internet. I am so stoked about that too. That is just an added bonus.
We're going to need it. We're going to need to figure out what the new longest trope is. I mean, we're going to need some help with some historians in the Discord, please, because I don't know what it is.
Yeah, that's true. After the West Texas internet,
that was the OG.
Yeah, that was. I can't think of anything else after that. Uh, if I'm in and out a little bit, or if I seem a little off over the next couple of weeks, just kind of bear with me a little bit. It's going to be a little bit of a transition as we get going to moving up back up to the Dallas metro area. So I am super stoked again. Just a personal life update for me, and yeah, that's about it. Better internet, yes. More Stars games from this aspect of my life, from the podcast side. So, anyways, I want to, before we get into the series preview with the Edmonton Oilers, I do want to talk about a couple of things that have been happening, and just very briefly mention it, because the two things that we need to be mentioned that need to be mentioned is, first off, the Ryan McDonough trade. That kind of
Wow.
came out of nowhere,
That
shocked
is going to
everybody a little bit.
shake up the whole league. I mean, look out for Tampa Bay next year, everybody. Ryan McDonough's coming around.
But I mean, that is going to be a significant piece lost for the Nashville Predators, and it also is a significant piece for Tampa Bay. So I think more highly of Ryan McDonough than maybe you do.
Yeah, you definitely do. Tampa Bay's trying to get back to where they were by literally getting their old players back. So it's, I mean, what they did was great. Getting 2 cups in a row, that's what you got to do with the cap era. Capitalize when you're on the top, and they did that, and their time is over. It's going to take them a bit, and Ryan McDonough is not going to bring them back.
Yeah, I think that's what they're trying to do. And plus, it just makes sense for him to be there. The only other thing that I've got is, and then Chris is going to go off on not a rant, but a minor interlude about this. The coaching carousel continues. You know, there's so many different coaching changes between who is where, and this person's there, and this interim coach is no longer the interim coach. He's the head coach now. I'm not even going to mention it, but Chris, you were saying something very interesting off air before we got started. Can you tell everyone what
Well,
you
what
were
I
talking
was
about?
saying is that I don't care. Like, we're just, I mean,
It
Pete
wasn't.
DeBoer, Pete DeBoer talked about it in his press conference the other day. These coaches moving around so often, and for what? They're almost all these coaches coach the exact same way. Like, they're all like vanilla, basic NHL hockey. There is not much of a difference between all these coaches that are getting shuffled around. I think Pete DeBoer coming was a little bit of a different deal for the Stars, because it went from the polar opposite of a defense first and sometimes defense only coach to Pete DeBoer, who is very forecheck heavy and even like leave the zone early, stretch passes. That's a big part of his play style. So that's kind of a difference. But I mean, we're trading out one middle-aged white Canadian for another middle-aged white Canadian like it's going to change the entire franchise. I know we talk about it's the easiest thing to do and how weirdly effective it is to do it during the regular season, but man, I don't care anymore. It's boring.
Speaking of coaching changes, one of the coaching changes that we saw during the regular season and very early in the regular season, the Edmonton Oilers. The Edmonton Oilers are 31st in the league about a month and a half into the season. And then they just go on an absolute tear after that. I think at one point they won, like, what was it? It was very similar to Nashville's run. It was like 16 or 17 in a row. They were like 17-1
And
and
then they
2
lost
or
7 in a
something.
row, and then they won 12 in a row. And
Yeah, a very streaky team. So it's oh my gosh, I forgot his last name. Jay something. He gets replaced by Chris Knobloch, who is now the head coach of the Edmonton Oilers. And he comes in and they do what they're supposed to. And now we're facing them in the Western Conference Final. We got lots of things to talk about here, Chris, but I'll let you kind of take the first stride with this. Like, where do you want to focus at with this series?
I think we should focus where the Stars are going to be the weakest. That's where we should start this one, and we'll end on the high note, I think. So the number one place where I was thinking Woodcroft, and I didn't want to say it because I thought it was stupid. Sorry.
You were right.
Anyway, special teams. Edmonton has lived on its special teams these playoffs, and Dallas has been shockingly poor. And you can look at a couple of different reasons for that, right? So obviously Edmonton is going to be an amazing power play. They've got McDrysaddle, who is amazing on its own, and help me out with their defenseman. I just forgot his name.
Bouchard.
Bouchard, thank you. Bouchard has been playing out of his mind since the playoffs started, which has been huge for them on the power play and has led to them just being almost automatic. But the Stars penalty kill has really struggled. Yeah, it's been against really good power plays in their own right, but for a team that was pretty solid on the penalty kill, it's pretty shocking how poor they've been.
So one of the things that's really interesting about this matchup, and I'm glad you mentioned this because this is a huge thing to talk about. We talk about the special teams, but you specifically have to look at with this series that the Dallas Stars penalty kill is absolutely atrocious right now. Like full on atrocious. It is bad. Do you already know the percentage, Chris?
I don't know the percentage off the top of my head, but I know it's
okay. So a trivia question. Here you go. So what is the answer to my question here? What is the percentage in the playoffs of the Stars penalty kill? Don't cheat and use the chat.
68.
Chat, don't help it. That's a good guess. 69% is the percentage
nice.
right now. I knew you were going to say that as soon as you did that. But I mean, that is very different than what we've seen from them in the regular season. And, at the same time, they're still able to they proved in the Colorado series they were obviously the better team. And it did surprise me a little bit to hear that stat. And it's a very interesting stat when you talk about the special teams here.
Yeah. The best thing that the Stars have going for them on the penalty kill side is that they're not taking penalties. Like, for how disciplined they were in the regular season, they've been even more so in the playoffs somehow, which has been incredibly impressive. Probably a little bit of a reaction to what Ben did that possibly cost the Stars in the conference finals last year, but they've been very played within themselves, still played physical when they need to, but definitely not getting close to crossing the line. And that's something the Stars have been great at. But you're going to take penalties in this game. And especially if the Oilers do what they need to do in this series, and that's try and make it more roughed up, to try and make more calls overall, then we're going to have to figure out at least some kind of entry to the penalty kill. I don't think 68 is going to be, I mean, 69% is going to be good enough.
Nice. So it's interesting you mentioned that because did you listen to Podman Rush, their latest episode?
I think so.
Okay, so maybe you've got this, just by osmosis there. But one of the things that Razor talked about was the fact that this seems to be like a series that is in the Stars' favor. Especially based off of the fact that you look at the schedule that both teams have had, and Dallas has had it way worse. And in the first series, it was a very even series. Like it could have gone either way. Vegas could have easily won that series. In the second series, I don't want to say they handled the Colorado Avalanche, but they were obviously the better team. This one, I don't want to be cocky or anything like this, but this seems to be the I don't want to say the worst team because they're not a bad team, but the worst team that the Stars have played in the playoffs so far. Well, and that seems to be like a whole high and mighty thing, but I mean, it just feels like it based off of what we've seen.
And to bring that back to the penalty kill, or the special teams like I was talking about, I think that's part of the reason why the stats on both sides are kind of inflated in those regards, because the Vegas power play and the Colorado power play were both amazing.
Fantastic.
They were both crazy good. Like, if they were still playing, they'd probably be right there on the stats with the Oilers power play. And then on the flip side, the Oilers power play and their offense has been playing some suspect teams. I mean, they played the Kings, who were the Kings, and got demolished. And then they played Vancouver, who it was a good series, but Vancouver got really tested by the Predators even in the first round. So there's definitely some question marks there. So it's kind of like the Stars have faced the hardest stuff and the Oilers have faced the easiest stuff. And I think that's where especially these special team stats, are going to be slanted way more in favor of the Oil than it really will play out on the ice. So between that and the Stars' discipline, I'm not too worried about the penalty kill. Definitely worried. That's the Oilers' best chance right there, is to play on special teams as often as possible. But it's not as slanted as those stats make it seem, and as everyone else is talking about.
So I should rephrase what I was talking about earlier as well, though. Razor was not saying that. I kind of went off on a tangent there, but what he was saying was that in order for the Oilers to win this series, he feels like they're going to have to muck it up, basically.
Yep,
Like
absolutely.
they're going to have to Minnesota the series. And Dallas Stars fans know exactly what I'm talking about when I say that. They have to try to get the Stars off their game, and they basically have to be jackwagons to the Dallas Stars and try to get them off, just be jerks. That seems to be like the only way, at least how Razor felt, that they can beat the Stars in this series.
And the reason that they're going to have to do that is, one, to get on special teams, like we were saying, is their best advantage. And the other reason is that they're going to try and grind our defensemen, especially Miro Heiskanen, into dust by the end of the series. That's their goal, because we have seen what Miro Heiskanen can do to these top Oil players. I mean, he can totally shut McDavid down, especially when he's playing the way he is. I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit later, but he is able to eliminate one of those guys. And if we can eliminate one of McDavid or Draisaitl, I mean, that series is done. So they're going to try and muck it up to get on the power play and get on the penalty kill. They want just more penalties called, and they're going to try and just get our defense off their game.
So I want to give a quick shout out to the series preview that The Athletic did. And it was Shayna Goldman and Don Lucian, and I forget the third guy. I apologize. Sean Gentile. I hope I said that right. But they have a lot of interesting things that they talked about with this series. So one of the things you just mentioned, Chris, was, is Miro Heiskanen going to be able to keep up with McDavid? In the past, and the answer has been like 80% of the time, yes. There have been games that McDavid has gone off on the Dallas Stars, but it hasn't been very much.
Yeah, compared to other teams, very low.
And then here's the other thing: if Miro is not able to do it, then you also have a Harley, and then after Harley, if Harley is not able to do it, then you also have a Tanev.
Tanev might be first right now, the way he's
right, and that's my point. That was the question that I was going to get to, and it was I forgot exactly what they talked about, but the question was, is Chris Tanev going to be, will Chris Tanev be the difference? And they go on a rant about that. But it's interesting to talk about that they're talking about Chris Tanev and not Miro Heiskanen, and the fact that, you know, that just goes to show you how defensively elite that Chris Tanev has been, that instead of, Miro Heiskanen being talked about, going up against McDavid, which he's been able to do in the past and has successfully done, it's Chris Tanev who they're talking about. So not only do you have, I would argue, you've got three guys that could go against McDavid, but after McDavid, they have a Leon Draisaitl. So you've got three defenders, and maybe even four with the way Esa Lindell is playing. I'm a little less strong on Esa Lindell, but you got three or four guys that can handle those top two guys who are the go-getters, the point drivers for this Edmonton team. So in that aspect, on paper, and what we've seen in the past in regular season games and even in playoff games, that, those two guys can be shut down.
Yeah, and I'll play a little bit devil's advocate here. The Stars have rolled 5 D-men for the majority of these playoffs so far, and they just did it against a really fast team in Colorado. They succeeded, but I mean, it seems like they're going to get worn down. You look at Miro Heiskanen's time on ice. He is, I think, technically time on ice per game, he's second, but he's behind a Washington Capital player who is obviously no longer playing anymore and can't get his time on ice lowered. So for all intents and purposes, Miro Heiskanen leading time on ice per game by almost a full minute. So are we worried at all that those guys are not going to be able to last the entirety of this series, given how much time that they've been playing?
So But I know you're playing devil's advocate there, Chris, but I would argue that, the Colorado fans and the Colorado podcasts and the media, and rightfully so, were looking at that as a weakness and saying Nils Lundqvist is only playing 3.5 minutes to 5.5 minutes a night. And eventually those five guys are going to get worn down. That didn't happen. And that was even after they had one day off between a very emotional Game 7 series against the defending Stanley Cup champions. And then you go around and you win against the next Stanley Cup champions from 2 years ago in 6 games. And it probably could have even been 5 in some cases if we had kept that lead in Game 1. So that's just a rebuttal to that argument, I would say.
Yeah. 100% didn't happen against the Avs, who are a very fast team, just like this team is. And then I'll play on the good side, the good guy side this time again. Miro's time on ice and all the Stars defensemen's time on ice are vastly inflated compared to the other teams still in the playoffs right now. And that's mostly due to the fact that we play more games than the other teams in the playoffs still. And we've played just more game time. We've had 3 long overtimes. I mean, we had one that was just over 10 minutes, one just over 15 minutes, and then one over 30 minutes. And that vastly is going to slant those time on ice per game stats. So I kind of dug into it a little bit. In the last series, Miro averaged 26.45 in the 5 games, not including the double overtime. So that still includes the single overtime game in Game 1. So
that's
26.45. That's a lot.
That's still a lot.
Bouchard averaged in the 7-game series with the Canucks just under 26 minutes.
So roughly about the same.
It's one more shift. If the Oilers are looking at one more shift per game being the difference, I mean, you are looking for. Oh man, I lost my metaphor. You're digging for something. I mean, one shift a game is not going to make the difference there. And then the Stars even have one more thing to cover that up, and that's Petrovic. He played one great game. He played fantastic in that game set. In that Game 6, did exactly what we need him to. As soon as he slips up one time, though, I guarantee you we see a time on ice of 5 minutes or something like that. Just because DeBoer knows those 5 guys can do it, and they've done it for 2 rounds now against the 2 hardest first and second round teams to get knocked out. So that's not a slight to Petrovic. That's just, it's more so a props to the top 5 defensemen for the Stars and how good that they've been. So hopefully we can keep playing Petrovic and he keeps doing the solid small job that we need him to do. But even if not, the time on ice is really not that drastic. It's getting pretty evenly spread out between those 5 guys. Our top defenseman, who is the best defenseman still remaining in the playoffs. Yes, I know Adam Fox is here. Miro Heiskanen is better right now.
Absolutely.
One extra shift a game is not going to make the difference. I think that's a foolhardy place to look. I think you're better off trying to hammer Heiskanen with Nurse and Evander Kane than you are in your hopes that they'll get tired, because it's not looking like they'll get tired.
And to kind of back you up, offensively, Miro Heiskanen is leading the Stars in points right now. And that was very surprising to find out when I was doing some of my research for this podcast, Chris, was the fact that in the 13 games that, 13 games, 13. In the 13 games that we have played, he has, I believe, 12 points or 14 points?
14.
14 points. So he's got 5 goals and 9 assists. Is that correct? I'm trying to remember. I wish I should have
something like that. Yeah, he's scoring a lot.
It's something ridiculous like that. But like you can't not look at that and just on paper, like regardless of what you see on the ice and watching the game, Miro Heiskanen has been the most dominant player offensively. Looking at the sheet now. That's obviously not the case because we have a Wyatt Johnson, and we'll jump to that here in a second. But one thing I would like to see the Stars do a little bit better is I would like for them to dominate a little bit more offensively in this series. And the reason why it made me think about that is the fact that if we are able to be up by a couple of goals and, not necessarily turtle, but focus on that defensive style of play that has been so successful for the Stars in the last two series, you've got to have a bigger lead than just a 1-goal lead. If you have a 2 or a 3-goal lead, and I know the 3-goal lead is now the worst lead in hockey, it's no longer 2, but it still gives you an avenue for making a mistake. And then it allows players like Petrovic and like Suter to take a little bit more minutes, and then everyone stays just a little bit more fresh. And I think that right there is super critical, especially at the beginning of this series.
Yeah, against a team like this, you're definitely going to want to have larger leads for sure, and I don't think you're going to want to hold on to those one goal leads. I think you can, but just because you can doesn't mean you want to. I mean, we did it against the Avalanche too. I think the Oilers are just an even more top heavy version of the Avalanche. So I think it's possible for the Stars to be able to do it, but like you said, that's not the position you want to put yourself in. You want to do what the Stars did at the end of the Avalanche series, and that's defend in the other team's zone. I mean, that's the best way to do it. Keep the puck 200 feet away, and they're not going to score.
Quick side tangent before we get into more like depth stuff here, but I know a lot of people were talking about for over a week now, because it's been almost a week since we've seen Stars hockey. Who did you want to play in the Western Conference Final? And people were picking their sides. I want Edmonton. I want Vancouver. And there were a lot of the hardcore fans, the ones that overanalyze too much, all of this stuff. It's just yeah, exactly, us. Both teams were just 2.0s of teams we've already played. I mean, Vegas is just a better Vancouver, and did I say? Yes, I did say that right. Vegas is a better Vancouver, and then Edmonton is just a better Colorado, and we beat both of those teams. And in the Vegas aspect, we beat the better of that comparison. And in this aspect, in the Colorado and Edmonton aspect, we've proven that we can shut down the superstars of a very top-heavy team. We cut out Makar, we cut out not Draisaitl, McKinnon, and we cut out Rantanen on a good portion of those wins that we had. There was some crazy stat we talked about. It was 2 points in the last 3 games for McKinnon and Makar, right? In the 3 losses
like
they had.
Yeah.
In game 3, game 4, and game 6. Like that's what we've proven we can do that, and we could do the same thing very easily. I don't want to say easily; it's never easy. But to McDavid, to Draisaitl, to Bouchard, whoever you want to enter in there.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there, and just given that the Stars have good history playing against the Oilers too, and in doing just that. I mean, you look back at the past 3 years that the Stars have played the Oilers. It seems like the Oilers are always either leaving the AAC or going back to their houses in Edmonton, just frustrated all get out that they can't get through the Stars' forecheck and can't get into the offensive zone with any kind of speed or any kind of openings. So if the Stars can just do what we've done to them in the regular season, obviously as the playoffs, you're going to have to step that up a little bit more. Then, I mean, I agree with you. I think you're going to be able to play it a very similar way that you played the Avs.
Okay, we've talked about the stylistic differences between these teams. We've talked about the defense especially. We jumped into that. We've talked about the special teams. Let's look at the most glaring differences between these two rosters. And Chris, you're shaking your head. You already know where I'm going with this. It's the goaltending. And Jay Gottinger, he has not had a bad game. There are times when he's been good and times when he's been great. And then every once in a while, he'll have that one shaky goal that you're like, probably kind of want that bat. But he has been so consistent in these playoffs in that he has not had a complete meltdown of a game like we saw during the regular season. He has seemed to figure that out. His stats kind of bear it there. He has a .918 save percentage in the playoffs, which is way better than his regular season, which I think he was at like 902, 903, 904, like just above 900. So he has stepped up his game at the right time, and that save percentage definitely shows that. When you look at the other side, there's a goaltending question for a Stanley Cup contending team. Who are we going to see in that for game 1? And the reason why I asked that is you look at Stuart Skinner and at Calvin Pickard in net for the Edmonton Oilers. I would argue that Calvin Pickard was the better goaltender. And I know he only played 2 games. He played less games than Stuart Skinner did. But I watched Game 6 and Game 7 both after the Stars had won their series. He wasn't tested. Like he was not tested. I think they had 17 or 18 shots in Game 6. The Canucks did, and then it wasn't much better in Game 7. I think they had like 20.
About the same. It was less. So they didn't break 20.
Oh, they didn't break 20? Okay, so maybe I had that flip-flopped then. One of those games they didn't break 20 and the other day did.
No, both games they didn't break 20.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
I was wrong about that. Okay. I was just doing that off the top of my head. But
pretty much in the last 120 minutes of that series, the Vancouver Canucks played for 5 minutes. And they almost won Game 7 because of it, which was crazy. But yeah, he has not been good. And the last 2 games, everyone's trying to say, oh, he's building confidence now. He didn't face 20 shots. I mean, it was very obvious the Canucks were out of gas. It was a young team that didn't know how to keep going this late into the season, and they just got wore out by the end of it. So,
and then you look at the last 8 minutes in Game 7,
and still almost
the Canucks actually had a chance. Now, it wasn't a big chance, but they had a chance. They scored.
They got within a goal with 5 minutes left. That's a pretty big chance when you're playing that bad for the past 2 games.
Yeah, and the first and second period were awful for the Canucks. And I honestly felt bad for them watching them. I was like, dude, this is embarrassing. But they gave themselves a chance to win. And part of that, and I'm not trying to pick on him or anything, but it's because Stuart Skinner was in net. Oh, I didn't even realize what I did. But it's because Stuart Skinner was in net. You know, you have someone like Thatcher Demko, or even like if you have Georgiev in net for the Oilers, then I'm like, Georgiev was excellent against the Stars in the series for the Avalanche. He was very good. I mean, if you have like subpar goaltending with that Oilers team, they immediately already look that much more dangerous. And I wouldn't be, more confident than I should be right now.
Yeah.
So it's just it's ridiculous to talk about a goaltending controversy in the final 4 teams in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
That's weird. It's not just because both guys are so good, like we could just interchange them. It's like, no, neither guy's doing great. And we're just trying to figure it out. And even more important than that, though, like, yeah, their goaltending is not going to be good. Jake Ottinger is on his game right now. He is letting in some softies every once in a while. That's kind of his MO. He lets one in every once in a while. That kind of hurts. And the biggest thing is how he's been able to respond to those both within the games and within the series. I mean, the Game 5 loss to the Avs was his worst game of the playoffs, especially the timing of when he let in some of those softer goals. And his response in Game 6 is that is playoff Jake Ottinger right there. And that's how you know when he is in his mindset where he feels like the guy, and he is the guy when he gets in that mindset. So I think, yeah, Oilers goaltending is bad, but man, when Jake is playing like this, good luck.
Like, he didn't even let in a 5-on-5 goal in Game 6 against the Avalanche. The only goal they scored was Makar, and it was a 5-on-4 playoff goal.
That was Rantanen.
Rantanen. And it was a 5-on-4 power play goal. Excuse me, not a playoff goal. It was a playoff goal.
It was a playoff goal.
It was a playoff goal.
Glad we got
the wrong P word there. So that that is the biggest glaring difference between these two teams, is that one team has got it figured out on their goaltending, and then I wouldn't feel great about it, but I have confidence in Wedgwood as well. Like, if something happened with Ottinger, which we'll talk about here in a moment, if something happened with Ottinger and he was, aggressively hurt or something, I could still see us, winning the series even with Wedgwood in net. But like, I would say Wedgwood is better than both of those guys in net over there for the Oilers. I think it's fair to make that argument. I know we haven't seen him in the playoffs at all, but I think it's fair to count that. Now, here's a thought I had, and I'll ask you this question, and you can tell me what you think. So, Pete DeBoer has this option. We have shown in the last 2 series that the Stars can play a very defensively minded game and be able to be super successful. But this is a different team. This is a different series. What you cannot do is what Vancouver did in game 6 and game 7. You cannot allow him to be just kind of, I mean, they could have put a traffic cone in net for the Edmonton Oilers, and they still would have won the game because there was just nothing of major to save there. So, do the Stars change their style, especially at home, maybe, and be more aggressive, maybe in the first period, use a little bit more energy, and go after whoever is in net, whether it's Skinner or Pickard, and try to get him not confident in the game, and put some doubt in his mind. And then maybe then those goalies let in the softies over there. Or do we stick to the style that we know we're successful with? And I could see an argument for both.
I don't think you need to change your style to test Skinner. I mean, you just need to get pucks on net. The Stars forecheck is going to really hurt the Oilers defense right there. And I think those turnovers in the offensive zone, and yeah, like Ardell is saying, rush chances through the neutral zone where the Oilers don't do anything. The neutral zone is free against the Oilers. You just get shots on net and you hit the net. And that's where the Stars need to focus on. They get chances, but
they have missed the net on some big times and especially in the Colorado series. That's a good point.
They are known to miss the net. And it's not just the playoffs. They've missed they shoot fine every single time. I mean, they're aiming small and trying to hit right on the pipes, and that's great, but you got to hit the net, especially on a goalie like this. You have to force him to prove that he can save the puck because he has proven that he can't. So if you're taking a little bit of a worse shot for a higher percentage that's going to hit the net, you got to do it. Now, you can't just pepper the pillows and put him between his chest and let him get comfortable, but you got to make him make a save. And that's what the Stars really need to focus on, getting pucks on net, forcing Skinner to actually play this series. He didn't play the last 4 games of that series. I know he was in the last 2 games, but he didn't play. He was watching.
Pickard was in net for game 4 and game 5.
Yeah, that's what it was. That's what I was saying.
Yeah, good.
But Skinner
you didn't explain yourself, though. You sounded stupid while you explained yourself. Anyways.
I think the people who understood didn't think I was stupid.
Not like I haven't said stupid stuff on this podcast before, right?
Playoff goal.
Dang it. You even made more reason than I was thinking. Okay. So we talked about everything else. We talked about the goaltending. That's the biggest thing. The only other thing I can think of is let's talk about the offensive lines and let's discuss this for a second. Oh, wait. No, we didn't. We need to discuss this. So this was a major thing with Ottinger today. Ottinger is apparently sick. So, and like with an illness. Now, he's not hurt or anything like that. And apparently he will be ready for game 1. But that is going to affect him in some sort of way for game 1 tomorrow. So
yeah, it was kind of weird. I mean, DeBoer had his media availability after their practice today, and he was out there for the majority of practice, but they just said he left early because he was feeling quote unquote under the weather, whatever that means. He said he was confident that he would be in for the game tomorrow, but it is a little bit concerning when he's playing as well as he is to hear anything about your goalie in regards to leaving the ice early or injuries or anything like that. So hopefully he's okay, or hopefully he just has an epic flu game and shuts him out, which would be awesome.
That would be quite hilarious.
Can you imagine him doing the post-game interview, obviously just raging fever through his body, and he just shut him out and we just won 5-0? That would be great. That would be the best timeline.
You know what's even funnier? He's talking to Leah Hextall, right? All right, as the sideline reporter, and he's just, oh my goodness, bench reporter. Man, I'm off tonight. And then he's just sitting there talking, and all of a sudden just blah right at her feet.
Oh,
I think Stars fans would love that. Is it just me and I don't like Leah Hextall?
Tough. Rupe Hintz, he skated before practice, did not practice with the team, still listed as day-to-day. To me, that means no for this game, probably no for next game. I'm worried about Rupe Hintz. I'm thinking there's a good chance we don't see him in this series.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a second, because speaking of that athletic article, that was the X factor. They talked about it. Is Rope Hintz going to be, healthy for this series? And I just did an episode with Locked On Stars with Joey over there yesterday, and I wasn't quite sure like how to feel about it, so I didn't really have a personal opinion on it. But what he said is, he said something similar to you, Chris. But he thinks that like if he gets in the series, it's maybe even Game 5, like at the earliest. So like that is a bit of concern if you're a Stars fan there. But at the same time, this is something that the Stars have been able to overcome. This is the strength of their team. The biggest strength of their team is their depth. And they kind of have to be able to say, next man up mentality. There's nothing you can do about it. He's hurt. Okay, go figure it out.
That is the strength of the team, and that would make a victory in this series even that much sweeter to prove that depth. Like your top line center is out against the best two players in the National Hockey League, and we still win. That would make it so sweet. But I mean, what worries me even more about Ropey being out, even more than just the production, because he has been a little bit slow on the production side in the playoffs, even when he was playing. It's more so the line combinations. The games when Rope was out, I think we saw line shuffling in all 3 of those games, if I'm not incorrect. So it's hard for those guys to feel comfortable in those lines. I mean, splitting up the Sagan, Duchesne, Marchment line is probably the biggest catalyst of that, and that's just because you need centers. I mean, you got to have a guy to take the draw on that top line. So it makes it weird, and it makes the lines look different than they have the entire season. We never had lines the way that they are right now because we're trying to keep Johnson where he's comfortable, obviously, with the way he's producing, and that causes us to have to break up the Sagan, Marchment, Duchesne line. So that's what I'm more worried about, is how those line combos will work out. And maybe we just keep shuffling them every game. I mean, we just go with a bunch of different combos because it seems to be working. But that'll definitely be something to keep an eye on as game 1 goes and as the series goes. Just what do the Stars lines combos look like without Rope Hintz?
It's interesting you say that, because I was listening to the Steve Dangle podcast, and they were doing their own little 10-minute series preview between the Oilers and the Stars. And they were using Daily Faceoff as like looking at the line combos. You know what the first line was? Johnston, Ben, and Stankoven. That's what they had as the top line for the Dallas Stars right now. So
I mean, who knows what the top line is? You got line combos are like this. It's like you got 3 top lines.
Right. And so the other thing is that, Daily Faceoff is probably doing it based off of the way they've seen these guys play. And you could make an argument that line of Ben, Johnston, and Stankoven, especially with Johnston, these playoffs, has been the most effective line. And I know Stankoven hasn't been rewarded in the goal scoring department or even in the assist department. I think he deserves more accolades than what he's getting. But you watch his forecheck and what he's been able to do. One of the reasons why Johnson has some of these goals is just the little bit of extra effort that Stankoven gives in to keep the puck in the zone or win a board battle. It sometimes it's just that simple. So it just goes to show you like the depth of the Dallas Stars. And then like if you're the Oilers and you're like, okay, well, we've got that top line, and we're watching out for Johnson especially right now. Okay, well, here comes Duchesne, who just scored a game series, winner against his former team. That you got to think that maybe that gets him going. Pavelski had a goal in game 5, so that helped a ton as well. And maybe we're starting to see some of these other players that need to kind of get going a little bit. We talked about Dodonov and how well Dodonov can quietly had a good playoffs as like a secondary role goal scoring player. So I think you just have to really make sure that if it's a line combo you go with and you're Pete DeBoer and it doesn't work for a period, immediately switch it up and try something else, because it seems like every time he switches it up, when he realizes it's not good, it just seems to fix itself. I mean, he had Ben and Sagan together in game 6. We have not seen that for over 2 years. Over 2 years. And it just happened to work in game 6.
Yeah. And really, you prove what my next point was going to be there is when Rope's out, it actually makes Pete DeBoer's job more important in this series because he's going to have to keep his hand on how each of those lines are doing much more closely and know when to pull the trigger on changing those. So it makes his job harder and it makes it more important and it makes he's going to have to be better in this series too, which is a weird thing to say about a coach. But as the games go out, he's going to have to make the right decisions in real time with minimal information, which is going to be tough. But I mean, he's been able to do it, especially at the end of the Avalanche series. He did it supremely. So he's got to keep that going. Other quick injury update: Yanni Hakanpää is not going to play. He's been day to day for 2.5 months. He was skating earlier in the Avalanche series. He's not skating anymore. He's not playing. Yanni is not coming back.
Well, my argument to that would be, do we need him?
Yeah, you probably don't want him to come back at this point after not playing hockey for 2.5 months anyway. So,
and it's nothing against him because we could obviously use him, but like, if it's gonna take him a game or two or longer,
yeah,
to try and get back up to speed,
not worth it.
That's hard. One, that puts him in a not fair position, right? I mean, because all of these guys have been playing playoff hockey for over a month now, so that's not exactly fair. And then, plus he probably still wouldn't be at 100%. So like, you're asking a guy to get full playoff, mentality, emotionally, physically, everything. And then you're also telling him that he's got to figure all that stuff out with a nagging injury still.
Yeah. So it would take a lot of bad stuff happening for Hakanpää to find his way into the playoffs at this point. It'd have to be Petrovic can't play either. I mean, he starts losing what he had in that game 7, and the defense is obviously slowing down due to fatigue. And maybe you see a Yanni Hakanpää come back, but I'm pretty confident that Yanni's done for the season for the Stars.
Not when you've got a Derek Pouliot and also a Gavin Bayreuther. And I mean, there's other guys there that can fill in a 6th line role that can play 10 minutes a night. So, I mean, those I have confidence in both of those guys. Pouliot was pretty decent. He had his moments where he hiccuped, but generally speaking, he was fairly solid as a number 6, which is exactly what he would do. And even though Gavin Bayreuther hasn't played in a Dallas Stars uniform this season, I still feel confident in the fact that he would be able to do the same thing if he was called upon to do that. So
I don't on Pouliot and Bayreuther, but hopefully we don't have to see them. If we see them, we're in trouble.
Okay.
The other end of the ice, something's wrong with McDavid. We don't know what it is, and they're not telling us.
Something's wrong.
Something is wrong with McDavid. He had less than 2 shots in the final 3 games of the series.
And, but that could just be because of the importance of the game and the fact that they had a lead. They were obviously the better team, and they were focusing on the defensive style of the play. And if there's anybody that understands how much a cup means to him, it's Connor McDavid. Like, he is the greatest player of our generation, and he has yet to. I don't even think he's made the Stanley Cup final. Correct? He's gotten to the Western Conference final, but never the Stanley Cup final. So, and the other thing is, you can't say that. I mean, look at what he's done. Do you know his stats for the playoffs, Chris?
Yeah, he's got a bunch of goals from the first series, and in the second series, he's got a ton of assists.
No, he only has 2 goals, which seems crazy.
Oh yeah, even there, boom, he's not shooting.
He has 19 assists.
Yeah. I mean, he can pass.
He has a Zach Hyman to pass to, who has 11 goals. It's ridiculous. So I don't.
He's not the same McDavid. It's not the same player. I mean,
this might be a playoff McDavid. I'm not gonna.
It's not a playoff. Every playoff McDavid we've seen has been when he went to the conference final last time. Him and Draisaitl drug the team to the conference final. Literally drug them, and that didn't happen. I mean, they got depth scoring in their final 2 games against the Canucks to beat them, which was shocking. But this is not the same McDavid. He's got a better team now than he did. What was that? 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
Something like
But
that.
he is not McDavid right now. I think he's injured. I think it's an upper body injury. He's still able to skate because he's still getting crazy minutes and he's still going pretty quick. But he doesn't have a shot right now. He can't shoot.
I'll have to disagree with you there, Chris. We'll have to agree to disagree. Okay. Now to the all-important series prediction. Obviously, we're both going to go Homer here, and based off of how you've heard us talk, we're both going to pick Dallas. But the big question is, how many games is it going to take? Chris.
Okay. I want to say Dallas in 5, but they always lose the first game. So it doesn't start until game 2. So Dallas in 6. I don't know if I'm gone or if Ryan's gone. I think when I'm spinning, that means I'm gone. Oh, they said West Texas drop, so it might be me. Okay, Ryan's gone. Wow, that was a big drop. Man, I saw the spinning thing. I thought I dropped, but no, it was you. So I was just staring at the people. Sorry, people.
Nope. Hopefully that's the last time that happens.
Yeah,
sorry, I don't know.
Stars is thanks to the new move, that won't happen again. But of course, that won't happen until the playoffs are over. So y'all will not even notice it for another 5 months. What do you have, Ryan?
I also want to say 5, but I have the same reasoning you do. The Stars have not won a game 1 in the last 2 years. So I think it's going to take 6.
But you know what? The Mavs lost their 5 previous game 1s as well. They won their game 1 tonight. Maybe the Mavs have shaken the demons, and it is finally time for the Stars to win a first game. That would be crazy.
That would be nice. Ardell is super confident. I can't be that confident, man. If it was any other team and Connor McDavid was not on this team, there's still Leon Draisaitl on this team. Like I still feel like with those 2 players, you have to at least discount them 1 game, at least 1.
I am holding myself back from this confidence.
Ardell still says no. Stars in 4.
I'm very confident in this hockey team right now. I think this is the worst of the 3 teams that we played in these 3 rounds. I think Vegas is better. I think Colorado is better. And I think you just got to take care of business here. But you can't discount it, obviously. But McDavid and Draisaitl can do crazy things. Even though I think McDavid's hurt, like you say, he still has 19 assists, which is crazy. He's just bouncing them off his backboard and handing them to Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. So you can never say that these 2 guys are out because they can dig at anything, I think.
Ryan Gardner, who's their 3rd best player? People are going to say probably Evan Bouchard, but it's Zach Hyman. And yeah, he's getting fed the puck by Connor McDavid, but you have to be able to put the puck in the back of the net somehow.
I would say Nugent-Hopkins is better than Hyman, like as a hockey player.
Oh, that's a good one too. I don't know.
Hyman has great positioning. The end. Nugent-Hopkins can skate. He can play defense. He can stick handle. But yeah, even then, those are the 4 forwards that they have. I mean, if you're wondering about who else is on the Oilers, that's it. Those are 4 forwards, and they have 1 defenseman who can also only play offense, and that's Bouchard. So when we say top-heavy team, this is a very top-heavy team, even more so than the Avs, but their top is way heavier than the Avs was too. And
they have more depth than the Vegas Golden Knights had. So, well, I think we lost Chris there. Not quite sure what happened there.
Wait, you just said that the Oilers have more depth than the Vegas Golden Knights?
Sorry, no, not the Vegas Golden Knights, the Colorado Avalanche. Excuse me. Thank you.
I disagree with that too. I still think you're wrong.
Even if it was the Colorado Avalanche?
Yeah, I think the Oilers are not as deep as Colorado was.
Okay, that's. I mean, I could see the argument for that too, to be honest with you. Liquid Bacon. Oilers suck. Stars in 3. If there was such a thing, I would agree with you. But then that would mean we're back in the bubble playoffs in the first round, in the qualifying round, and I never want to do that again.
And let's get in before we wrap it up here tonight. Let's just large emotion break this down. All four of these teams think that this is their year. I mean, the Oilers are saying we're saying that the Oilers suck. I'm sure the Oilers are saying the same thing. Oh, the Stars, oh, they got lucky. They scrapped their way through that. I mean, they had to win in 7 games, then in 6. We took care of our first round opponents so easily. Stars are terrible. Every team right now thinks that this is it. That they are so confident going into it. And 3 other fan bases are about to get heartbroken. So all the emotions are on the table at the conference finals, especially for the Stars here. I feel like you were right here last year. If you drop it again at this point, I mean, it sucks to say it, but if you don't win this series, the season is a failure still, even in the Final Four.
I think it depends on how they lose it, to be honest with you. It would still be a disappointment if we lose this series, absolutely. But if for some reason the Oilers just, all of a sudden everything works and Stuart Skinner is now the reincarnation of Patrick Waugh, and McDavid is not just McDavid, but Gretzky put together with the two of them, and all of a sudden he's like the avatar of hockey players or something like that. I don't know. But then I wouldn't be
But
all
that's
that.
a lot. That's what I'm saying. It would take a lot for it not to feel like a failure.
Exactly. And so there's a lot of if this happens, if this happens, if this happens for the Oilers. And for the Stars, there's not as many. Not as many questions. So
And then on the flip side of that, if the Stars win, you just beat the defending Stanley Cup champion, the year before Stanley Cup champion, the best player in the world, and the second best player in the world, and you're on to the Stanley Cup final against either one of the teams that wins the East is one of the best teams in the league and is going to be a huge storyline. Either you're facing Kachuk in the
Stanley Cup finalist from last year.
The Stanley Cup finalist from last year.
Or the best regular season team from the NHL.
Or the best regular season team, and they're from New York, so that's all you really need. So the storyline is set up here for the Stars to have a truly just historic run to the Cup here. And it's set up, and you just got to go take it. I mean, the Stars are a favorite, I feel like, right now. And you just need to go capture it. I mean, I haven't felt more confident in any of my sports teams, even the Rangers, than I felt in the Stars this year. They've got it all lined up. You got to go take it.
The pitching came out of nowhere. And then like even with the Mavericks, the rebounds just came out of nowhere from game 2 to game 7.
Other sports.
Ridiculous.
Whatever, Ryan. This is, I know I said everyone thinks they're a team of destiny. The Stars are the team of destiny. This is it.
I'll let Chris have that, and he can be the last one to give the last remarks here tonight. Thank you guys for following along with us. Even though I did not do a very good job in publicizing this episode here tonight, we had up to 78 people here tonight, just hearing us talk about the Dallas Stars and this series preview against the Edmonton Oilers. There's even more of you that are listening afterwards. We appreciate you guys just as much. We had about 462 downloads on that Game 6 episode, Chris. So that's, again, another record for this podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Like I said earlier in the episode, I did an episode with Joey Erickson of Locked On Stars. We also sort of kind of did a little bit different variety with the series preview with that. Go and check that out on YouTube and anywhere you get your podcast. It was so much fun. And as always, Joey is just fantastic. He stepped into that role on Locked On Stars and has done a great job. So it was a lot of fun talking with him last night. But alongside Chris, my name is Ryan. Go and check out sarcasticremarks.com. We hope you guys have a good, fantastic morning, afternoon, evening. Whenever you guys are listening, we'll be back with you guys again tomorrow night when the Dallas Stars at a regular time. Thank goodness. 7:30 start time when they take on the Oilers in game 1 at the American Airlines Center. Let's go.